Hey y'all, I know this looks kind of creepy, kind of dark and spooky. Um, but here in Savannah, we've been without power. Most of us, or a lot of us in the Savannah area, we've been out without power for 2 days now. The hurricane, which that you may have heard about, Hurricane Helene, took a turn in our direction. We didn't get the brunt of it by any stretch, but uh, there was enough damage done to power lines um, to knock out the power for much of the city's residents. And so right now it's a situation where you go out and you have to you there's all kinds of people just pouring into the mall or McDonald's or wherever else that has power. Motels or hotel lobbies, anywhere where you can find an outlet, and people going there and charging their phones because there's no charging them at home right now. So we don't know when this uh, issue is going to be settled. They're taking their sweet time addressing it, but I don't know. I don't know why this was allowed to happen. I guess shit happens, but they're just. I don't know. It's one of those things that cements my general uh, impression of of governmental incompetence. Which is to say, if you're not some kind of libertarian, you don't have to go full fledged libertarian. But if you don't have certain libertarian impulses, then you're really not getting off the ground. You got to at least see that the state is at best often useless. Uh, but anyway, that's getting a little far afield. I want to talk about uh, Megalopolis. 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 This is a movie by Francis Ford Coppola. It's some are calling it his vanity project in his old age. Others are saying it's what's a better term to use than vanity project. This is his magnum opus, or this is the a passion project. Passion project. This is the movie that he really went all out to make, and you have to admire the guy for just doing what he was uh, doing what he had to do. He's a rich guy. Obviously, made a lot of successful movies in the past. Uh, he owns a winery that he does. I think he does pretty well on. But he sold it. He did what he had to do to get some millions and millions of dollars free, and then he just took that money and made this movie. He didn't go to any producer and ask them to kick him some money, please, from their company. He said, "I'm going to do this all myself because this is my vision, and I want to get my vision out there in an unfiltered, uh, uncompromised kind of way." And the result is Megalopolis. Megalopolis. Still feel like I'm saying that wrong. Megalopolis. Is it lips? Megalopolis. Megalopolis. There you go. Megalopolis. Um, Not megalopolis. Um, so yeah. So as I sit here in the dark, it's appropriate enough to talk about one man's the twilight of one man's career. um, but again, he Coppola just goes all out. He did it with Apocalypse Now. If you ever saw Hearts of Darkness, the documentary that they made about Apocalypse Now, I mean, he threw everything in the kitchen sink, and probably the kitchen sink too, at that movie. Um, was hiring Philippine extras and exploiting local Philippine workers, and building these huge sets out in the jungle, and had got these army helicopters together to resemble the U.S. Army helicopters to stage that famous scene with the Ride of the Valkyries by Wagner playing when they swoop down and attack the Viet Cong village, and all that. Um, so Coppola is somebody who, you know, in the movies that we remember him mostly for, which are the Godfather movies, Godfather 1 and 2, not Godfather 3, although he made that one also, but he's not. He would prefer us not to remember him so much for that one. Um, and Also Apocalypse Now, and also The Conversation. The Conversation is a little bit different. It's a little bit more low budget, uh, indie kind of feel to it, but the rest of them, big spectacles. Uh, and Megalopolis is no exception to that rule. Now, Megalopolis is coming, some, 43 years, 44 years, uh, no, 45 years after the release of Apocalypse Now, which I would say was his last great work. Um, and He's done some things in between then and now, but I don't think anything of particular note. Maybe Bram Stoker's Dracula, that he made in the 90s, 93, I think it was. I think that was pretty good, but everything else has been generally forgettable, in my view. Some of it's just been sort of schlock, like Rumblefish and The Outsiders, and stuff like that. He must have been making those movies just to get a buck or two. Um, must have sold himself out a little for those. But this is the first movie in a while, I think, that I can remember, where it's got that Apocalypse Now sort of feel to it. It's got this crazy gonzo energy, and it's just like, look, look, motherfucker, I got the money. I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna fund this movie. It begins with written, directed, and produced by Francis Ford Coppola, or maybe that's uh, um, the first thing that happens, the first mark or card that comes up during the closing credits. And anyway, he's owning it all. He's doing all. He's the big three. He wrote it, he directed it, and he produced it. Um, Now, in that way, this movie reminds me of a movie from exactly 2 decades ago, which is Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ. That also was a passion project. That also was a movie that Gibson decided to make with his own money when the studios didn't like what he was going to do, or they were going to insist on interfering with his vision in one way or another. He said, "No, I'm going to make my movie the way I want to make it, and I'll just fund it with my own money, and so nobody can tell me what to do or what not to do." And that movie, of course, was extremely controversial and also extremely successful. Um, the controversy, you might or might not remember, came from some people thinking that it was anti-Semitic. Um, for one reason or another, and also just that it was overly overly violent, overly gruesome, uh, sadistically cruel. Showing the torments of Christ lingering over all of the flesh getting torn out of his skin, and all kinds of things like that. Just watching uh, Jim Caviezel as Jesus Christ just get absolutely beaten to a pulp, and then crucified for 2 hours. It's not everybody's idea of a good time, but I thought Passion of the Christ was an incredible film, and I really loved how Mel just did what he was going to do, and just stuck it to everybody and said, "You don't like it? Well, you don't have to see it, but I'm funding it with my money, and people are going to want to, it's going to get a distributor because people, I know I'm a name, and people are going to want to see my movie. And plus, we've got, a lot of devout Christians out there who want to see a movie about the Passion of Christ. So there you go. And it was also based on the visions of Anne Catherine Emmerich, who had these incredibly detailed visions of Christ's crucifixion. So 20 years later on, we got Coppola's Megalopolis. Now, this movie is also controversial, not nearly to the same degree that Gibson's movie was, but it also hasn't generated the same kind of interest or the same fan base, the same kind of acclaim that Gibson's movie did. But they're still giving, like, the corporate media is giving him crap about this, that, or the other thing. They're making accusations. They're saying he was harassing women on the set, but not really providing any evidence that he was doing such a thing. And I don't remember what else there was a lot of negativity about this movie. Like, this is just going to be unwatchable. This is just a stupid vanity project of a dying straight white male director. Just all the vitriol and all of the rancor that they are capable of. Well, not all of it, but there was some of that. But the people who were cast in this movie defended it to the hilt. They were including Adam Driver and my girl. I can't think of her name right now. The crazy goth girl from Parks and Recreation. Anyway, pew goes out of my head, but you know who I'm talking about, and you're gonna just shout it at the screen. No need to leave it below. Okay, you don't have to write it down below in the comments, because I'm gonna remember it as soon as I stop this video. But they were, anyway. All of the actors seemingly had a wonderful time making this movie, and they were very complimentary of the process. Now, other interesting things about this movie: Coppola said he consciously went out and chose to cast some actors who had been canceled. Among them, Jon Voight, who now this is a really interesting synchronicity, because I remember 20 years ago, Jon Voight being interviewed or asked about Gibson's Passion of the Christ, and then he demurred and didn't want to say anything nice about it, because he said, I'm a big supporter of Israel, and so I don't really think I can support this movie. So that was 20 years ago. Now, since then, although I'm sure he's still a big supporter of Israel, since then, Jon Voight has crossed that line into cancelability, I guess, because he's a big Trump supporter. So Coppola cast him, cast Shia LaBeouf. Never quite clear on how to pronounce his name. Cast him also, and Dustin Hoffman, who I guess was Me Too'd. We haven't really seen Dustin Hoffman in much of anything lately. He is pretty old, of course, but he shows up in this movie. He doesn't really have that much to do, but he's there. And Coppola said, I made these movies with these actors who'd been canceled, and some of whom had ideas that I didn't necessarily agree with, because I want to transcend petty politics. This is a movie about creating a better future for our children. And so, I'm going to cast some people who feel some ways and some people who feel other ways. But if we're going to create a better future for our children, then we're going to have a world that allows for differences of opinion on things. So that's kind of cool. Um, Koppel's done some things that in his career that are questionable, especially surrounding the Jeepers Creepers director. If you want to look into that, things that are pretty difficult to forgive. But I would say that his heart seems in the right place for this movie. Insofar as wanting to uncancel the canceled, and put an end to petty, what he calls petty politics and petty squabbling over political ideas. Now, the movie itself is, what can I say about the movie itself? It's it's big, it's bold, it's brazen, it's visually. I thought, I've heard people say different things about the visual style. I thought it was very impressive visually. It's kind of this surreal environment. It's modern New York City, but but it's called New Rome, and so it has a lot of the trappings of Rome, and the main characters have Roman names, like the Adam Driver, who's sort of the hero of the movie. His name is Caesar, and he's an artist, and he envisions creating this utopia, and he's got this material. When the title is Megalopolis, right? There's some material called that they've discovered that has almost magical properties called megalon or megalo, or I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's part of the title. So Megalopolis is going to be this new city that is made of this miraculous material that's beautiful and kind of uh, you know has a certain spiritual sheen to it almost, uh, and it's indestructible. But there's some kind of battle of ideas between him and the mayor, played by Giancarlo Esposito. I'd probably mispronounce that, but uh, the mayor thinks that Caesar is just this foolhardy kind of idealist, and he also actually tries to frame him for statutory rape at some point, which was kind of a weird moment with one of the Vestal virgins that are shown. Now there are scenes. I'm having a really hard time describing this movie because it's something you kind of have to see to understand, and even if you see it, you don't totally understand it. It's not that the plot is terribly convoluted or anything like that. Uh, it's just hard to describe what exactly it's about. It's sort of a futuristic sci-fi movie, but I think it's supposed to be a fable, and it's supposed to harken back to ancient Rome. Um, so obviously, you see the parallels with America being in the state that it's in right now. Thinking about the final, perhaps the final days of empire, uh, and Rome's final days of empire before it crumbled. And there is a sort of Caligula esque character that's Shia's character. Now, Audrey Plaza, Audrey Plaza, that's my girl, Audrey Plaza. Now she is this um, kooky, uh, but also sinister. That sort of describes her, doesn't it? Kooky but sinister. That's all of her characters. Um, this femme fatale who lures uh, Shia's character away from the man that he serves, which is I think his uncle, the John Voight character. Now, John Voight's character, I think his name is Crassius, and he is doing a dead-on impersonation of Trump. He's talking like Trump. He's his facial features are Trumpish, and I think that must have been by design. Now, that you might be thinking, well, of course they make him into the villain, right? No, actually not. They actually give him a pretty kick-ass send off. I mean, he does. It does look like he's going to die, and then I won't. I'm not going to give this part away, but he strikes back and takes out his enemies in a pretty badass way. So and then afterwards, even though he's been characterized by greed prior to this, up to this time, which also suits the sort of archetype of Trump. If you think of '80s Trump as the real estate maven, the billionaire, the millionaire billionaire. I mean the what am I trying to say? The Manhattan billionaire. That's what I was trying to say. So, but in the end, he says he wants to be a benefactor, and he gives his fortune to to Adam Driver, who's the hero, who's creating this this new world, this new city, this utopia. Um, Now, let's see if there's anything else worth saying about this movie. I enjoyed it. Um, I won't say that I thought it was great because I don't think it's great. I would say that it's very unique, and it took balls to make it, and uh, it's it's definitely one man's singular vision. Um, I guess another thing that's interesting about it, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this yet, but it's a um, pretty conservative movie insofar as the way it presents gender roles. You have the men in the movie there's the man who's the visionary innovator, uh, Adam Driver's character Caesar, and then there's the mayor who's the pragmatist, and then Crassus, the John Voight Trumpish character, who's uh, gosh, I don't know what, maybe the capitalist, um, and then you have the uh, Shia's character, Claudio, I think, who's who's just sort of a rabble rouser, uh, and so these characters are all very very these are all male kind of archetypes. The women who show up in this movie are Aubrey Plaza's character, who's like the scheming femme fatale, a very feminine role, and so she's like the bad girl. The good girl is the actress who plays the daughter of the mayor, who falls in love with Adam Driver's character and supports his vision of things. And of course, that causes consternation for the mayor, but eventually they reach a kind of peaceful settlement of their differences. So the you've got the bad girl who's scheming, who's manipulative, who uses her sexuality to gain power for herself, by manipulating men who are easily manipulated through sex. And then you've got the good girl, who's loving and supportive and nurturing. And that's something else I think that's maybe refreshing about this movie, that doesn't try to go for doesn't try to shake things up gender wise, goes for the traditional gender roles. Um, and yeah. So, do I recommend it? I would recommend it if you are a cinephile. I'd recommend it if you're not necessarily interested in seeing something. Um, I don't know if you're not if it's not necessarily if you don't necessarily have to see something that's good in a way that is satisfying and answers your questions and all of your questions and brings things to a close and wraps a bow around everything, or that has a plot, so to speak. There's a plot here, but it's a little it's more of a spectacle than a plot driven movie. So if you want to see something that's a crazy sensation, something that's audacious, or if you're a cinephile and you want to see what the way that Coppola has chosen to the cap that he's chosen to put on his career, then I would recommend seeing Megalopolis. Now, this movie I don't think did very well in its opening weekend, which is nobody's surprised by that. Nobody expected this movie to do well. So if you're going to see it, I would say see it soon. But there are interesting parallels, like I said, with Passion of the Christ, in that in the singular vision of the director and putting his own fortune behind it. In this case, Coppola is just going to lose a ton. Gibson, who really made a lot of money off of Passion of the Christ because it was incredibly successful. So he got all of his money back and then some, tenfold probably. But Coppola is just going to lose a ton of money on this, and he doesn't even care. What does he care? He's 85 years old. Uh, you know, I mean, he does have a daughter, so maybe he should care. But I don't know. Um, so yeah, see it if those criteria sound interesting to you. And that's me, Andy Nowicki, signing off here from the dark.